Item B, recommendation to approve the naming of the MHS varsity softball field, changing that name to, well, actually giving it a name, finally, to Parker Field.
I'm gonna make a few statements here first. I'd like to give a little history about Ted Parker, and I may be off on these dates a little bit, but hopefully pretty close. I'm gonna be pretty unemotional here if I can be, but we'll see how that goes. I'm a little softy at times. Ted came to Mitchell, I think in '64, and he started umpiring at the Mitchell Little League. I, by chance, at the time was 9 years old. First time I ever knew who Ted Parker was. He coached the boys Little League and Babe Ruth from 1965 through 1977. He directed the Little League, came back to the boys Little League, and directed that Little League from 93 through 96. He started, and this is all about the girls softball field. Well, in 1977, he started coaching a girls softball team, and he was the director over the softball league in 1978. Well, and if we remember back, that's when we started the construction on the gym and had to move the parking lot and all that. And we was gonna need somewhere for those kids to play softball. So he contacted Mr. Jack Bowman, who was the superintendent at the time, and asked if he could have permission to build a softball field in front of the school where we see it now. And at that location, him with the help of Plush Powell, a local businessman who was over the Mitchell Crush Stone, had access to equipment and did a lot of work on different fields here. He helped Ted build that field over there. And also Ted located some lights in Ohio. He brought those poles and lights to Mitchell, set those lights up, and those lights were on that field for many, many years until we got the present lights that's there now. And he maintained and directed that softball league from 1979 to 2008. He also, from 2004 to 2008, coached the varsity girls softball team. And something that I'd forgot about that came to mind too was that he started the 35 and older league on that field. Now, I wasn't old enough at the time to play that because those were old people that were 35 and older that played on that field.
Are you now?
I'm old enough now, I barely make the limit of the 35 and older. I know it's hard to believe. But another thing about Ted, and I'm gonna get into some other things here, he was a devoted husband. He was a devoted dad. He was a devoted grandpa. He was a dedicated, loyal volunteer to Mitchell's youth for over 44 years. 31 of those years was on that field right over there. Okay, and throughout those 44 years, he's touched hundreds and possibly thousands of Mitchell youth in their dedication for him and his wife, Gail. And it just touched many, many, many people. And you get thinking about 31 years on that field, 44 years, but mainly 31 years on that field. We had a girls softball league that was there every night. And I look at this family here, and I think, how many meals did they miss? How many family meals did you miss? You know, how much family time was taken away that him and Gail were at that field? How much leisure time did a husband and wife lose for the benefit of our children? So, you know, one of the things that was brought up said, well, you know, when we talk about naming something, boy, you know, Ted had some critics. There were some people who didn't like him. Well, I'm gonna tell you something about that. I don't know of anybody that ever accomplished anything in life or did anything for other people that didn't have critics, didn't have naysayers, didn't have enemies. And those are the people that are doers. Those are the people that move things. Those are people that get things done. And that's whether you're in community involvement, whether you're in politics, or you're in business. The people that get out of their comfort zone, get out of their little bubble, and get out and do things. Those are the people that have critics and people that say bad things about them, okay? Now, and I look at us here sitting here. What's the mission of Mitchell Community Schools? It's to educate our children. If we said one thing, that's our mission, is to educate children. Okay, and you think, well, how did Ted Parker and Gail Parker educate our children? They weren't teachers, okay? Well, there's other ways to educate people. You know, we can do it in an academic situation where we give them a book, where we can, you know, teach to that book, we can test to that book, we can give them homework and judge them on that, or there's really life lessons we can do. And some of those life lessons that I think that thousands of people, not only kids, but I'm talking about adults, I'm talking about people that went there that were coaches, were volunteers, were spectators, were umpires. Those people went to that field, and what did they see? How were they educated? Well, they saw a man and a woman that were married and dedicated and loved each other fiercely. Dedicated each other. They were dedicated to their family. This bunch sitting right here, they loved that family. And boy, everybody knew Ted Parker and Gail Parker knew they loved their family. No doubt. They were tireless workers. They were there every night. And you know, many of us have done things. Many of us have coached teams. I coached over there 10 years. Coached in the Little League many years. Bitty basketball. And you know, I think, well, I made my mark. I did a little bit. It pales in comparison to what Ted did. It pales in comparison, any of us. We have wonderful volunteers to this day that's still working for our youth. But what Ted and Gail did, those things many times pale in comparison. And I think those are life lessons that are very important. And I think that's invaluable to what they did to not only those children, those players over there, but to our community. And I don't think there's many of us that's sitting in here or out in the community that don't drive down Hancock Avenue and have some way been touched through family, through their children, through just driving by and seeing the fun and enjoyment that was provided on that field for 31 years. So that's kind of what I've got to say about naming the field Parker Field. And with that, I'd like to make a motion, we name that Parker Field.
Very well said, Steve.
Thank you.
Nice job, Steve.
Thank you.
Steve makes a motion, name
I-
it work.
I will second it.
Crystal Shetler seconds, all in favor?
And I'm glad I'm not the only one.